Thank you so much, Dheeraj. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited you've taken the opportunity to learn more about Boston University Questrom School of Business. As was mentioned, my name is Dana MacFaun. I am the Director of MBA Admissions, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions you have about the Full-Time MBA here at Questrom. So my plan is to take a few minutes just to provide you with a brief overview of the Full-Time MBA program here at Boston University, after which I will transition over to discussing the application process. I will walk you through the application and provide you with tips on submitting a successful application. And after that, as Dheeraj mentioned, we will take any questions that you have as well. So a little bit about the Full-Time MBA here at Questrom. First and foremost is the mission and the culture of the school. Every university and school is different in sort of their mission and what they value at their institution. So I think it's an important place to start when looking at schools. And so here at Boston University Questrom School of Business, we believe in creating future business leaders who want to create value for the world. So students here have a big focus on not just creating value for the company or organization for which they work, but also for society and for community. And we do that through teaching ethics throughout the program as well. So, you know, if you find yourself here at Questrom, you'll find a lot of students who are interested in not only doing well, but doing good. We also have a strong focus on community. So teamwork is woven throughout the entire program here at Questrom. It is an extremely collaborative environment. It is not at all cutthroat, and teaming really is in our DNA. You will learn how to work with people from all around the world, from every background you can imagine, and will really help you to learn how to think about business on a very global scale, but also keeping in mind working with different people. We also have a strong focus on diversity and inclusion, both diversity in thought, but also culture. As I mentioned, we have students that come from all over the world, so there's quite a large global perspective here in the program. And you'll learn how to be an inclusive leader. So we have a great number of resources available, and it's something that you'll see just woven throughout everything here at Questrom. As I mentioned earlier, ethics is also at our core. We provide ethical frameworks to allow our students to have the tools that they need in order to make sure that they are prepared for being ethical business leaders in today's society. We also have a strong focus on what we call three main sectors. So three areas where we believe it's important to understand how business works. So regardless of what job you'd like to hold after graduating from an MBA, these are three areas that really you can't avoid. And those are the areas of digital technology, social enterprise and sustainability, and health and life sciences. And again, this is something you'll see woven throughout the curriculum here, regardless of what area you choose to pursue. And one huge advantage of being at Boston University's Questrom School of Business is that we have the large resources of a large school, but also the benefit of being at a small program. I think a lot of people know BU as being big. We are one of the largest research institutions in the United States. And with that comes some tremendous resources that a smaller school might not be able to afford its students. But on the flip side, the MBA programs are notably small. So you will know everyone in your class, you know the students in the other classes, and it's really helps to create that inclusive collaborative environment that I was mentioning earlier. And we have many degrees. So we have the Full-Time MBA that you're here to learn more about, but we also have a part-time MBA, an online MBA, several specialized master's degrees, as well as PhD programs as well. But I'll spend the time talking about the Full-Time MBA specifically. So with the curriculum, our program is a 2-year full-time MBA. In the first year, it is actually pretty unique. Our program starts as a quarter-based system. We call those quarters mods or modules. And so you will do your core curriculum, the foundational classes, in the first 3 quarters of that first year. You will go through those mods with the same group of students. It's a cohorted system, so you get to know everyone in your cohort very, very well. And each mod that you do will build upon the foundations of the mod that you did previously. They all incorporate either projects with real companies or simulations. So you have a lot of practical experiences while you're learning how business really operates holistically as a system. In the 4th quarter of that first year, you will start doing electives, which are the classes that you start choosing. This is a huge advantage for our students because it gives them early access to electives. They don't have to wait until their second year to have access to electives, which helps them to start to specialize prior to the summer internship that will happen in between the first and the second year, which is something that employers really like to see. So it helps set our students apart. You come back after the first year and after the summer internship, and in the second year, you will do all electives, and it's semester-based. So you will have more than a year's worth of electives to really tailor the degree to be as broad or as focused as you'd like it to be to help you reach your individual career goals. Because you have more than a year's worth of electives, there are a lot of opportunities to really design your MBA to be very specific to you. Honestly, there's probably more ways to customize your degree than at almost any other school because of this. So there are many ways to do that. You can customize your degree through specializations, which are more formal tracks. We also have dual degrees where we partner with other schools on campus, as well as pathways within the MBA program. So just a brief highlight of what each of those are. So our specialization, we offer two of them. We have a health sector MBA first. This is not a different degree. It's the same MBA as everyone else takes. You are in the same core classes, but you will specialize more formally within your electives, within healthcare specific electives. You still have additional electives to do other focus areas. So you are not limited just to healthcare classes, but it gives you access to additional resources outside of the classroom too. So not only can you learn the foundations of business as well as coursework in healthcare, but can also access all the great resources that happen outside of the classroom through our health sector MBA. Likewise, we have a social impact MBA, which is our other specialization. Just like with the health sector MBA, it's the same idea, except you are able to focus in social impact. So people looking to work in nonprofits or corporate social responsibility, energy or sustainability, any of those areas. This, if you're interested in moving into one of those areas, this would be a fantastic specialization to pursue within the MBA. We also offer several dual degrees. We have an MBA plus an MS in digital technology. This is the only dual degree that we offer where both degrees are housed right here at Questrom. It's a huge advantage for those interested in working in the technology space because you get to learn both business and technology, but from a business perspective, so that you understand not only how technology works, but how to manage and lead people within technology. So people looking to do product management or technology consulting or analytics, this would be a great dual degree. And one of the added benefits is it doesn't take longer to get than just the MBA. So in the same length of time you'd earn an MBA, you could also earn an MS in digital technology. We also have several other dual degrees where we partner with other schools. So you could earn an MBA as well as a master's in another area, like international relations or economics, public health, law, medicine. There are several. These are not degrees that you don't have to pursue a dual degree, but if you're interested in one of these areas, it allows you to specialize even further within your degree and earn 2 degrees. And then the most common way that people tailor their degree to be specific to their goals are through our career pathways. These are sort of like concentrations. You've heard of concentrations at other schools, but it's a bit unique here at Questrom. Career pathways, instead of being a formal concentration that locks you into certain classes you have to take, it instead allows more flexibility and provides you with guidelines on how to pick the right classes based on your career goals. So for example, if you know that you'd like to work in brand management, we can help you select the right electives so that you're taking the courses you need to set yourself up for a career into brand management. And we have dozens of career pathways to help you. You can choose multiple pathways, you can do no pathway. It's completely up to you, but it really allows you to make the degree whatever you'd like it to be. We also offer something called learning communities, which is the opportunity to take what you do in the classroom and then tie it to the outside of the classroom experiences. So these are communities of people who have shared interests so that you can get together and have connections both inside and outside of the classroom in a particular area. So it ties together students, professors, alumni, clubs, organizations, industry, to provide you with additional resources to ensure that your learning doesn't stop at the classroom. And part of that is tying you to the experiential opportunities, which is a huge part of an MBA, ensuring that you have the opportunity to practice what you're learning while you're here with us full time. So whether that be through an internship that you do in the summer, where you get to practice what you're learning with a company or organization, whether that be case competitions where you partner or work with a company or organization who provide you with a real business problem, and you have the opportunity to work on a team and compete with other teams. That provides great access to company resources and the inner workings of organizations. We have clubs and organizations that you can join where you'll, work with real organizations. We have clubs that put on symposiums, that bring in guest speakers, that do panels, pretty much anything you can think of. We also have a lot of research centers and institutes on campus. One of the most popular ones being the Build Lab, which is part of our Innovate at BU initiative, which is our campus-wide innovation initiative here at Boston University. So anyone looking to go into entrepreneurship or working at a startup or just interested in innovation in general, the Build Lab provides you with a think tank or a space basically to go and practice the things you're looking to do. So whether that's writing a business plan, starting a company, or just learning the skills needed to work in a new environment, it's a really great opportunity. We also provide global opportunities, the opportunities to go overseas and meet with companies and organizations to see how business is done on a global scale, as well as the opportunity to have access to experiential opportunities right here in Boston. One huge advantage of BU is our location. We're right in the heart of the city, and it's a city that is known for many industries. So you have access to industries and speakers and alumni that are right here working in consulting, healthcare, nonprofits, technology, the startup scene, really, again, anything you can think of right here at Boston at your fingertips. And to help you with all of that, we have some great career resources. So we have both career coaches that will help get you career ready, as well as the Feld Center for Industry Alliances, which is a team of people whose jobs are to help you actually connect with future employers. So they will support you along your process throughout the entire time you're here at Questrom, as well as afterwards as an alum of the program. Our students have been quite successful. The most recent graduating class had over 90% job placement 3 months out. They are all over the world. Our alumni network is huge. We have over 30 countries represented just in the current students that are here at Questrom alone. And they go off and work in any industry you can imagine. So it really gives you the opportunity to network with people from every different background, but also going into every different industry that you can think of. So I know that was a brief high-level overview, but I'd really like to switch gears and talk about the admissions process and help you to navigate that process and figure out how to successfully submit a strong application. So I start off with our class profile slide just to give you a very high-level quick snapshot of the most recent entering full-time MBA class. This information can be found on our website with even more detail, so I encourage you to visit so that you can get a even broader sense of the various ranges that we look for. The one thing I'll say about this is don't worry about being right at the average for every factor. No candidate is right at the average for every factor. There will be things where you are above average, and there will be things where you're lower in the range, and that's okay. We take a holistic view, and you'll be able to balance each other out. What I encourage people to do is to try to at least be within ranges when possible to ensure that you have a strong application. So how decisions are made. Applications are looked at holistically, as I mentioned. There's no formula. We look at every piece of the application for different things. And the decisions that we make are based completely on the competitiveness of the pool in which you apply, which means every year is different. 1 year, your application could be quite strong. Another year, it might not be as strong. It depends on who you are applying against in the pool that you choose. So just know that as you're putting together your applications. Hard for us to predict. So if you were to say, here's my background, what are my chances of being admitted? We can never answer that question because it really depends on every piece of your application as well as the pool in which you apply. We're trying to figure out several things from the application. I'll actually show you a slide in a minute that goes into more detail about this. But at a very high level, we're trying to figure out, first and foremost, can you be academically successful in the program? as amazing as you might be, if we don't have evidence that you can successfully graduate and get through the program, then the rest wouldn't really matter, because we need to make sure that we can set you up for success. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that you can handle the rigors of the program. After that, we're trying to figure out not only why you need the MBA, but what you'll contribute in the MBA. This is something that candidates sometimes forget. So I encourage you to make sure that you not only tell us why you're interested in the degree, but what value you'll be able to add. I mentioned we're a team-based program. Every single person not only learns from each other, but teaches each other. So we want to make sure that everyone has something they're bringing in that they can share with their classmates. And then lastly, we're trying to figure out fit, overall, whether or not someone fits with the culture and the program that we have here. We're a small program. Are you looking for a small program, or are you looking for a big program? We want to make sure, are you interested in a team-based environment? If so, then we could be a great fit. If not, we might not be the right fit. So those are things that we're looking for as well. The application is relatively straightforward in that it's very similar to most other applications, although we do have a few pieces that I think are a little unique. There is an application form you'll fill out online. You'll submit a resume where you highlight your postgraduate professional work experiences that you've had. We require one letter of recommendation, transcripts to both your undergrad as well as any master's degrees you've earned. We also ask for transcripts from any school at which you are seeking a degree and earned 12 or more credits. So if you did a study abroad, or you started at one school and then transferred to the other, we'd want to see those as well. We require either the GMAT or the GRE. If you have earned your degree outside of the United States, we may ask for a TOEFL or an IELTS, although we do have waiver opportunities for those. If your degree was earned at an institution in which the mode of instruction was English, then we would waive the TOEFL. If you have worked for 2 or more years full-time postgraduate here in the United States, we would waive the TOEFL as well. There are other opportunities as well. So if you think you may be eligible for a waiver, we just ask you to email our office, providing us with that evidence of English ability, and we can determine whether or not the TOEFL or IELTS might be able to be waived for you. We also require essays. This is something that's a bit unique for Questrom. Our students have the opportunity to either submit one short written essay or to conduct 3 short answer video essays. So the choice is up to the candidates, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. And then we have an interview that is part of the process as well. So I'd like to show you a slide that goes into a little bit more detail about the factors we're looking for, or the attributes we're trying to assess in your application, but also the different parts of the application where you can highlight those attributes. First and foremost, you do not need in your application to check all of these boxes. This is not meant to be scary. This is meant to just give you an idea of where you could highlight different attributes if you were looking to highlight those in your application. So for example, if you are concerned that in your undergraduate performance, you maybe did not perform well in quantitative classes, you can see there are 2 other places you might be able to highlight your quantitative ability, the GMAT or GRE, and potentially your resume if the work you've done has been quantitative. So there are other places to show attributes or strengths than just maybe the obvious one. Another example is work experience. If a candidate has less work experience than is standard for us, and they're worried that their resume may not show everything they've done, well, there are other places to show your work experience. You can highlight your work experience through the recommender that you choose, through what you choose to share with us in your essay, as well as in your interview. So this is really just meant to give you an idea of all of the different places that you can show us evidence of the attributes that we're looking to assess. So what I'd like to do now is to actually walk through each part of the application and just give you a couple of quick tips on things we like to see, things we don't like to see, so that you can have the best application possible. So I'll start at the top and I'll go down. These are in no particular order. First on the list, we have the test scores, the GMAT or the GRE. We accept either. We have no preference. We always encourage candidates to submit whichever test they think that they will do the best on. So if you look at the GMAT and you look at the GRE and you think you feel more comfortable with one of them, choose that one. We do look a little bit more heavily at the quantitative side of whichever test you take. It's not that we don't care about the verbal side of the test, we certainly do, but we have many places in the application where we can detect your verbal ability. We don't always have a lot of places where we can detect your quantitative ability. So that's why we will often look at those scores. We also accept unofficial copies of those scores. So if you take the exam and you get an unofficial copy that day or a few days later, you can submit those for your application. We only require official copies if you're admitted, and you have until the program begins to get those to us. So don't let that hold you up in the process. Same with transcripts. We accept unofficial copies. So if you have an electronic version or your own copy, you are welcome to scan and upload those into your application as well. We will only require the officials if you're admitted to the program. Like with the GMAT or GRE, we don't just look at the overall GPA, we look at the breakdown of how you did. So in other words, if you maybe aren't thrilled with your overall performance in your undergraduate institute, but you got better as you went, or you did really well in some of the harder classes, or you took a really rigorous major, we see those things. We take them all into account. And if you took any quantitative classes, we'll look and see how you did in those as well. It's not required. Students don't need to have any particular major to come to the program here. They can have studied anything. We have plenty of students who did not study anything quantitative, and they do very well in the program. But if you did classes that were quantitative, we'll look and see how you did, just because our program is quantitatively rigorous, and we'll want to see how you might perform here as well. The resume, this is where you'll be highlighting your postgraduate full-time work experience so that we can get a sense of the types of things you've been able to do with an organization or a company. The best advice I can give you is try to be outcome focused. We really want to see people who've been able to contribute at a high level within an organization. So anytime you can demonstrate outcomes that you've had, it helps us to see that you'll be able to contribute here in our community as well. So things like highlighting when you've had promotions, or highlighting when you've increased your responsibilities, or you've taken on new tasks, or maybe it's something simple like, or more quantitative, quantifiable, like I've increased sales or decreased costs or increased efficiencies. Anytime you can show outcomes, the better. Do try to keep your resume 1 to 2 pages at most. We don't need every detail. We just need to understand the path you've taken and how you've contributed and sort of the types of experiences you've had at your organization. And use it as an opportunity, like I said, to really highlight the high-level experiences you've been able to have in an organization. The letter of recommendation, we do prefer that it is professional in nature. In other words, we would like to see someone who's worked with you in a professional capacity. Ideally, a current supervisor is great, although we understand you can't always ask a current supervisor. For example, they may not know of your intentions to leave your employment with them to go to a full-time MBA, in which case that's fine. You can go to a past supervisor, a senior level colleague, a supplier, a client, anyone who knows you in a professional capacity who can speak to your leadership, your teamwork, your ability to advance and be effective within an organization. We do use GMAC's common letter of recommendation. So if you would like to see what is being asked of your recommenders, you can look up that common letter and see the form right there. And it's really easy to send your recommender the letter. When you go into the application, there will be a recommendation section. You will put in their name and email address and just click submit, and it will send them the form electronically. They can fill it out and submit it right back to us electronically as well. The essays I mentioned are a little bit unique. Our students have the choice between 1 written essay or 3 short answer video essays. We don't have a preference. We really just want students to have the opportunity to tell their story in whatever way is most comfortable for them. If you're better with writing, then choose the written essay. If you're someone who's better verbally, then choose the videos. The written essay is 750 words or less and asks you to explain why you've chosen to apply to Boston University Questrom School of Business, as well as why you've chosen the program you've chosen and how it ties to your career goals. If you were to choose the video essays, you have time to practice. So it's a platform called Kira Talent, and we'll send you the link. And you'll have the opportunity to practice before you start, so you can work out any kinks with the technology. Once you feel ready, you click start. We will give you a question. You will have 30 seconds to read the question, and then 1 minute to record your answer. As soon as you're done, it will move on to the second question, and then the third question, and then you're done. Everyone gets the same first question, which is similar to the written essay question. The second and third questions will pull randomly from a pool of larger questions so that everyone gets a different series of questions. They're not meant to be difficult, they're just meant to get to know you. So things like, what are you most passionate about and why? If you could have a friend visit your hometown, what's the first thing you would show them and why? So really, like I said, just a chance to get to know you and learn a little bit more about you. So pick whichever one is the best for you. We also have an optional essay that anyone can do, and this is where you can address any concerns, gaps, or weaknesses. We're not looking for you to make excuses, but rather to address them and to alleviate any concerns. So if there is a gap in your resume or something, a strange semester in your undergraduate where things were, you didn't perform as well, and there was a reason, tell us so that we understand, and it helps us to better know your story. It helps us to connect the dots. And if you think there's a particular weakness, this is a great opportunity to address it and tell us why you still have strength in those areas and what other evidence you can provide. And last but not least is the interview. The interview is done with a member of the admissions team. They are done by invitation only, which means that once you submit an application, you may or may not get invited to an interview. We do try to invite as many people as possible. But your invitation, if you are to get one, could come as early as the day after you submit an application to as late as the last day in the cycle. It just depends on how quickly we get through all of the applications and send the invitations. But it is required to have an interview in order to be admitted to the program. We do ask a lot of behavioral questions. So give me an example of a time when. My best suggestion would be to go back to that chart I showed a few minutes ago. Look at those different attributes that were along the top and think of some examples from your professional experiences that can highlight those different attributes, and then you'll be in a good position to do well in the interview. I always encourage people to always have questions prepared at the end too, because our interviews, they move quickly. They're about 25 to 30 minutes, but we will save some of that time at the end for you for questions. And this is just such a great opportunity to ask some of the more thoughtful, more difficult questions that maybe you can't just get from our website. And so in order to take full advantage, you'll want to have some prepared in advance so that we can make sure that we're answering those for you as well. So our deadlines, we've had one deadline pass for fall entry. Our next deadline is coming up in January, on January 6th. And then we have a final deadline in March. Each deadline, we let you know when you will receive a decision. So if you apply for the January 6th deadline, you will hear from us by March 6th. If you go to our website and look at the deadline pages, we also tell you when you can expect to owe us your decision if you're admitted. This way you can plan what deadline is best for you so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you are up against a decision from another school and you're not ready yet. This allows you to know when you'll hear from us, but when we'll need to hear from you as well. The best time to apply, the best deadline to apply for, is the one where you'll have your best application. I'd rather see an application that's a little bit later but stronger because you've taken the time than one that's earlier but rushed. So take the time and know that there's still plenty of time. The January deadline is our most popular, which means if you apply for the second deadline, you're sort of right on time. So know that there's definitely, and there's still a deadline after that. So know that there's time to still submit a great application for fall 2020 entry. And last but not least is our tuition and financial aid. So tuition for the current year is just over $55,000 US per year. The cost does go up about 3 to 5% every year. So as you're deciding on or trying to figure out what it might cost, I would take that into consideration. We do offer many scholarship opportunities for our students. Students are automatically considered for scholarship at the time of admission. So if you are admitted to the program, we will also consider you for scholarship, and you will be notified at the same time if you are receiving an award. Over 80% of the most recent incoming class received a scholarship, and the average award was over half tuition. So there is scholarship money there, but it is based on merit. So you'll want to have the strongest application possible. Look back at our class profile page, try to be higher in the ranges wherever you can to set yourself up for receiving a larger award. There's also many other ways to fund the degree. There are loan programs, there are private scholarships hosted through other organizations, deferred payment plans, all sorts of things to help you. And we have a financial aid officer who can help you with the process. Her email address is questromfa@bu.edu. So if you have more specific questions, feel free to reach out to her directly and she'd be happy to answer those for you. She works just with the grad students here at Questrom. So she's definitely there to help. So I know that was quick and high level, but I want to make sure we save time for questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Diraj and answer questions that you have.
Thank you very much for this presentation, Dana. It was a pleasure to hear all of those details. Now I will ask all of the attendees to direct their questions using the Q&A option that they have on their screen. If you're using a desktop version of the GoToWebinar platform, it's on the bottom, it says Q&A. And if you're using a mobile version, it's on the top. So it says Q&A. Please direct your questions to Dana. We already have the first questions set in here. So we will start with a question by Adrienne. Are some parts more important than others? I mean, the essay, for example, is it more important than the interview?
That's a great question. Every piece of the application tells us something different, which means they're all important. There's equal weight placed on everything. There's definitely no formula. The essay can tell us something that a test score can't, and the transcript can tell us something that an interview can't. So each part of the application sort of has equal weight because we are trying to figure out different things from each of those pieces. I look at each part of the application sort of like a puzzle piece. You can't build the whole puzzle unless you have each of the pieces. So we try to take each piece to build the full puzzle so that we can understand the full picture of who you are as an applicant.
Perfect. And there is a question here by Mohammed who is asking us what percentage of applicants receive offers. I suppose that he means that are accepted. What percentage of the applicants are accepted to the Boston?
Sure, it ranges every year, depending on the year. We do put those numbers right on our website, so don't quote me in case I'm misquoting it. They're typically anywhere from 30 to 50% of the candidates over the last several years, but again, it varies from year to year. So I'd encourage you to look at the class profile on our website so you can see the most recent incoming class.
Okay, and again, on the admission side and the tests, what is the maximum, I suppose that they mean minimum for TOEFL and IELTS. Can you tell us a little bit more about TOEFL and IELTS and the English proficiency tests?
I sure can, yeah. So our minimum requirement for the TOEFL is a 90, and for the IELTS is a 7 in each of the bands, or actually, I'm sorry, it might be a 6.5 in each of the bands. Different bands though mean different things. So, and we do have some flexibility. So we encourage students to still send whatever scores that they have, because we still can take a look and see if we have evidence that we need. Likewise, while those are our minimums, we do often see candidates with stronger. So while the minimum is a 90, the average tends to be more closer to a 100. But again, I encourage students to send the scores that they have or reach out to us about waiver opportunities, because those are opportunities for certain candidates as well.
Great. Maybe you can tell us, since we're on the subject, if you do waive the exams for some reason. We're talking about both English proficiency tests and GMAT or GRE. Is there any condition that you would waive those exams?
Sure.
And how exactly?
Sure. So for the TOEFL and IELTS, we do offer waivers. students who've attended school in an institution in which the mode of instruction was English, for instance, are automatically allowed a waiver. Or if they've worked full-time postgraduate for 2 years or more in the United States, they also are eligible for a waiver. And if they feel as though they don't meet those, but they have English proficiency, they're also welcome to contact our office directly at mba@bu.edu with that evidence, and we can assess those requests on a case-by-case basis. The GMAT and the GRE are not able to be waived. We require one of those exams for all candidates.
Great. Regarding the tests, IELTS and TOEFL is the question here, but I suppose GRE and GMAT is also included in this question. Is it a must to provide these test results during the submission of the form for application, or not?
That's a very good question as well. Candidates are allowed to submit what we call incomplete applications. In other words, on our next deadline on January 6th, if someone has the majority of their application put together, but they're missing maybe one or two things, like their test score or a recommendation, they can still submit what they have. It allows us to start processing their application, which is helpful for us. But we can't evaluate it or make a decision until we have all of the required components. For all of our deadlines, we have a deadline, but we also have a grace period that happens after that deadline, in which a candidate could still either submit remaining pieces or submit an entire application. So if you're not able to submit your full application on January 6th, as long as we have all of the required pieces by the end of January, we still can consider your application for that January 6th deadline. So I do tell people, maybe your test date for the GMAT is in the middle of January. That's fine. Submit the rest of your application when you've got it. And then as long as we have it in time before the end of January, we can still make a decision.
Perfect. We have a question here by Irina, who is asking us, what platform are you using for video interview, and can I prepare for it? Probably do some tests before the interview, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on the formats of the interview that you accept. Would it be more online, or should they come and meet you live at some of the events that you go to?
Great, those are great questions too. So for the video essay, the platform is called Kira Talent. If you choose to do Kira Talent in your application, there are instructions right in the application on how to access it. You can practice with practice questions on the platform as much as you would like before you begin, so that you can, like I said, just to practice what the technology is like. Make sure your camera is working, the sound is working, that you're comfortable with how they ask the questions. But once you click go and you start, then you have to continue, and you will get your 3 questions and have 1 minute to answer each of them. For the interview, which is different than the video essays, the interview, if you are invited to one, our students can either come to campus and do them in person, or they can do them virtually. We are using Skype right now, although we're looking to transition to Zoom. So either way, though, candidates certainly have the opportunity to do that. We also travel throughout the year to different cities. And if we are traveling to a city near you when you've submitted an application, we also may invite you to interview in your city if it's convenient for you. But there's no preference given to which one you choose, which it's really meant to be convenient for you. So whichever is the best for you is the one that you should do. And we offer plenty of days and times to try to accommodate your schedule.
Great. Mr. Barakat is asking us, can we submit an academic recommendation instead of a professional one?
You are allowed to, but we would not prefer it. We are not looking for academic recommendations. We don't need a professor to tell us you are a good student. We will see that in your transcript. What we are looking for is someone who has worked with you in a professional capacity, who can explain how you've contributed to an organization, the leadership roles you've taken, how you are on teams, what types of projects you worked on, what are your professional strengths and weaknesses, things like that. And an academic recommender wouldn't be able to answer any of those questions, so it just wouldn't add much value to your application. The only exception I would say is if you worked professionally for an academic. So if your supervisor or colleague is academic, then that would make sense, and that would be that would work. But they should talk about you in a professional way, not as how you were as a student in the class.
Okay, can you, we have a question here. Can you please send us a sample of letters of recommendation? Would you have such on your website, for example?
It's not right on our website. It is the GMAC Common Letter of Recommendation. So if you were interested in seeing it, first of all, it gets sent directly to your recommender. And so once they receive it, you're also welcome to discuss it with them. I actually like to give the advice to prep your recommender. So often once a recommender gets the form, I tell candidates they should set up a time to chat with their recommender and to walk through what's on there, and provide the recommender with some examples of things you're proud of that you've done, areas you'd like to improve on. And that way the recommender feels like they have the information they need to write a great letter of recommendation for you. But if you'd like to see it in advance, I would just encourage you to Google the GMAC Common Letter of Recommendation. So GMAC, Common Letter of Recommendation. It's a standard form that's used among many schools.
Great. Okay. We also have a question by Khalid. Khalid is asking us, do you have a one-year MBA, and can I fast track the full-time MBA to 1 year?
We do not currently have a one-year format. The program, our full-time MBA, is a 2-year degree. So it does take 2 years to earn and cannot be done in 1 year.
Great. Okay. Ms. Awobayo is asking us, does the March deadline cover international applicants?
It does. International candidates who apply in the March deadline, they're welcome to apply. We still consider the applicants. It does mean that you start to have a little bit of a tighter window for working to get your visa, but we have plenty of international students who do apply and are able to do so. But you'll want to make sure that you're being efficient and following all the instructions we send you if you're admitted in order to get that visa process moving. But yes, the March deadline is definitely open to international students as well as domestic.
Great. Mohammed is also asking us, do you accept applicants from medical backgrounds, doctors, dentists, etc.? We
do. We actually get several of those every year, especially because we have a health sector focus. So we have students who are already doctors. We have students who are scientists. We have students who come from really so many different backgrounds, but we do usually see a doctor or two every year as well. And it makes sense. Someone in the medical field who understands the medicine but wants to better understand the business side will often come to Questrom to earn their MBA. So yes, we do see that background.
Perfect. Ms. Gencheva is asking us if the internship between the 2 years obligatory, if the internship is obligatory, and does the university help in any way to find this internship?
Yes. So it is not required in that we can't force someone to get an internship, although it's highly encouraged and most students do it. And it is the student's job to find an internship, just like it would be their job to find their postgraduate full-time employment. This is the case at most institutions. However, we provide a great deal of support in helping you. So you will work with your career advisors right from day one, as soon as you're here. They, I think I mentioned earlier, they try to get you what they call career ready. A little bit more about that as they sit down and work with you to come up with a targeted search plan to help you really hone in on what your interests are so that you can start to prepare for those types of job searches, both for the internship and after graduation. So they help you with things like how to select the right companies and how to craft your resume for that particular industry, or interviewing tips for that particular industry, because they vary. And so they work with you a great deal. And when they determine that you are ready, they hand you over to the Feld Center for Industry Alliances, who will help you figure out how to connect with those different companies and organizations, whether it be through a company coming to campus in a more traditional sense, or whether it be connecting with organizations in other ways. honestly, the way recruiting for companies works is changed so significantly over the last few years. Sort of gone are the days of companies just coming to campus and doing fairs. They have realized they can reach a broader audience by connecting with MBA students virtually, for example, or through conferences. So our our employer relations team is equipped to help you navigate that process so that you can find all of the different ways to connect with a particular company. So yeah, they work with you quite extensively and help connect you with alumni too, because that honestly is a great way to sometimes find out opportunities at particular organizations as well.
Great, thank you. We are gradually approaching the end of the Q&A session. We have a couple of more questions that I will be asking, and I would like to ask all of the participants to ask the questions that interest them in the Q&A tab of the platform. We have a question here by Mr. Abu Awad. Administratively, can I take my family and register my kids in school? Do you provide any logistics support or guidance for families moving for study, like rent, for example?
Yeah, there are a lot of resources to support people who are moving here with spouses or families. In fact, we actually have a partners club. It's one of the clubs on campus. It's meant specifically to make sure that the significant others of our students are part of our community, just like the students are. And so they do a lot of social events and other ways to make sure that the families are part of the process. But yes, we have both on-campus and off-campus housing resources and other things to help you navigate that process. Our current students, because we're a relatively small MBA program, our current students get to know each other really well and are also a great support. So students who've moved here with families often are able to help you navigate that process too. So yes, the advisors in the grad center, there are so many people that can help you with that. So if you get to that point in the process, we'd be happy to connect you with people who can share their experiences and help you as you prepare for a move. I will say Boston's a great city to move to with a family. It is a major city, but it is a small major city. So there are many amazing resources, but it's easy to navigate. It's a friendly city to move to, and it is coastal. So it's easy to, has a major hub for an airport and able to get to places very easily. So it really is a nice place to move here, especially when you are bringing your family with you.
Indeed, I would share the same impressions. Boston really is a very nice city. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more while we're on the subject about the accommodation options that the Questrom MBA offers. Do you provide any support for the people to accommodate there? I mean, do you do that by finding just hotels, or do you have any facilities that you provide?
For the housing?
Yes, for the housing.
Sure.
While people are studying.
Yes, absolutely. So housing, we have both on-campus and off-campus housing. So on-campus housing is for graduate students. It's pretty popular because it's very close to the business school. It's right across the street. So some people really love it for the convenience. But because of that, they often are on a wait list. It doesn't mean that you won't get in off the wait list, but you'd want to get yourself on that wait list quickly if you're admitted to the program. That said, off-campus housing is also popular because Boston is an easy to navigate city. You could be technically off campus and still be walking distance to the school or one stop away on our public transportation system. We're right in the heart of the city, so the public transportation runs right through. We have our own stop right on the train system right here for the business school. So anywhere in the city where you're on the public transportation, you could get here incredibly easily. So we've put together a guide for finding housing because it is tricky to navigate. There are many neighborhoods and you want to make sure you know which is the best neighborhood and which neighborhoods are more expensive, which ones are the safest, which ones are the easiest to get to. And so our students actually put together this great housing guide that we provide our admitted students. So if you're admitted to the program, you'll have the opportunity to go through and see everything, as well as to connect with students about their experiences. They also share opportunities with incoming students for either sublets or roommates. So a lot of our students here in Boston have roommates because then you can afford more when you have roommates. Boston is, it can be a little expensive, so it allows for you to have an even better place if you have some roommates. And so our current students will often share with incoming students opportunities, to say, hey, I actually need a roommate next year. Would you like to connect? And so we do make it pretty easy to create this community to help you navigate that process. If you want to learn a little bit more now, if you go to bu.edu/housing, so BU stands for Boston University.edu/housing, you can get a good sense of the on-campus and off-campus graduate housing opportunities there. It will at least get you started.
Perfect. Community is definitely an important thing when you go abroad. So it's
Absolutely.
very good that you are nurturing that kind of a community sense. We have two final questions to conclude this webinar. One of them is naturally related to scholarships. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the types of scholarships that are available at BU, and also how can people apply to those scholarships. And the final question, for the final question, I think it would be good to mention about this application waiver that we said earlier on. Maybe you can tell us some details on how to benefit from that.
That sounds good. So our scholarships are based on merit. There is no application process. If you are admitted to the program, you're automatically considered. And you're notified at the time of admission if you've received a scholarship. There's no specific formula for how we award scholarships. We look at all aspects of the application. And so, I mentioned before, my best advice is to put forth the strongest application possible. If you are looking to have an above average award, my best advice would be to start with our class profile and try to be above average in as many of those ranges as possible. Although, again, that's not everything. We look at many different factors. We look at things like work experience, undergraduate performance, test scores, all sorts of different criteria in order to assess whether or not you are able to be awarded a merit-based scholarship. But like I said, you will be notified right at the time of admission if you've received one. And all candidates are considered if you're admitted, both domestic and international. As far as the application fee waiver, as a thank you for joining the webinar, anyone who applies for fall 2020 entry is eligible for an application fee waiver. I will be sending a follow-up email to those who've attended today's webinar with a link to our website where you can find instructions. But just in case you don't get that email or it goes to your spam folder, if you go to our website to the admissions section for the Full-Time MBA, you will see a section for application fee waiver eligibility. And when you go into that section, there will be a little form you fill out. They'll ask your reason for why you are requesting a fee waiver, and you can just indicate that you've attended the webinar. And then what we'll do is you will do that when you're ready to submit your application, but before you've actually submitted it. Make sure you do this before submission. We will process your request within 2 to 3 business days, typically, and then we will notify you that it's ready, and then you will go back into your application and be able to submit without being required to pay the fee. We basically just need to remove the barrier that asks for your credit card information, and we'll do that when you submit your request. It does take a few days, like I mentioned. If it means, if you request the fee waiver on our deadline and you're concerned that it takes a few days, it's okay. Like I mentioned, there's a grace period after every deadline. If you submit your request on the deadline and it takes a few days, don't worry. You will still be considered for that deadline.